Right. Well, welcome everybody to Change Management, Navigating Transitions. My name is Lawrence Heiner. I'll be your trainer today. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance at the California Community Action Partnership Association, or CalCAPA. Today's session is really focused on identifying a methodology for change management that we can use, including some kind of structured, activity-driven leadership activities that we can use with our organizations to help move in specific targeted directions. So let's get things going. Our specific purpose today is to equip you with strategies to navigate change effectively. We are currently in the context of fluctuating CSBG funding, but this could apply to any significant change that we want to implement within our organization, but we'll use that context for this training. And then the focus, the takeaway are going to be practical tactics and frameworks, some tools and spreadsheets and, excuse me, not spreadsheets, but documents in any case, to help us along the way. Okay, so I'll have some follow-up handouts for you after the presentation to help with some of the concepts and to use as worksheets with your groups. So why is change critical right now? As we all know, CSBG funding is at risk. That's not actually something new. CSBG funding has sort of been at risk for the past 20 years without an official renewal of the act. So this has always kind of been a thing. Right now, we're seeing a lot more potential cascade effects with additional funding sources that may be impacted. So for us, it's important to note that change is not optional. It's actually strategic survival. It's a way for our doors to stay open. And flexibility is our friend, not a fallback, right? So we want to lead in or lean into the idea of being flexible with our planning and our implementation of programs, and in terms of what is available to us and at our disposal. So trying to keep these things top of mind kind of all the time to use as contingency. Okay. Now, in our world, and for community action agencies, we encounter an awful lot of change. But here are some of the common change scenarios that we see, and that we at the association tend to help along with. One top one can be leadership transitions. So considering any of your C-suite of leadership or program leadership, when those leaders change, that can have a significant impact on an organization. Funding cuts or restructuring, which is what we're seeing a lot of right now. Program consolidation or expansion. We're probably not seeing a lot of expansion right now, but the principles will apply. So when our programs do expand or consolidate, we'll use a similar structure for approaching that change. Shifts in community need or demographics can obviously change the way that our programs impact communities. So significant for us. And then compliance with new state and federal mandates. We're getting a lot of those right now, and we will for the foreseeable future. That's always going to be well, a challenge for agencies to navigate change in those situations. Okay, so for our model, we're using Dr. John Kotter's model for change. And before I get into the um, the 8 accelerators of change, uh, Dr. Kotter has 4 principles that underscore all the recommendations for change. And there's a lot more information on Dr. Kotter's website about each of these 4 principles. But I did want to touch on them very briefly so you get an understanding of kind of where we're coming from when we talk about change and sort of the direction that Cotter takes for change management. So the first one is that we've got a select few and a diverse many are important for the change equation. You want to have some folks that are very knowledgeable in particular areas, but you also want a range of thoughts going on in the change process so that you can cover a lot of different viewpoints in the change process. You've got your head and your heart. So, meaning we want to be smart, but also passionate about the changes that we intend to make. There's a balance between have to and want to. In fact, when you can get those aligned, you're probably working in a strengths situation where you've got people leaning into areas that they want to contribute, happen to also be areas that have to be done. Okay. And then the last is that this is another area where we illustrate management and leadership skills, coming together. There's a lot of people that are involved in these processes, and taking leadership in these situations is key, and not just one person, but everybody that's involved, identifying what it is that their leadership roles are. So these four principles of change, they work together. They all work in harmony, and you can consider them sort of pillars of the next section here. All right. So the framework that we'll use for the balance of the training here is John Kotter's 8-step change model. It's also referenced as an 8 accelerator model. Over the past decade or so, Dr. Kotter has updated the model to reflect what they have been finding as realities in change management. In the past, they had looked at change as as something that you can kind of set up the dominoes of a plan and tip them over and have them all kind of, in this case, 8 different steps fall in line. And the way that it's structured, you can kind of see where that might happen. However, over time, Kotter's realized that any number of these things could be going on at the same time as other elements of the change process. So he considered each of these 8 areas accelerators rather than simply steps. Okay. So the link to the full models on this page, and I'll give everybody a copy of the presentation with live links so you can investigate that on your own. But we will explore these 8 steps or accelerators today in the context of community action. So step 1 is to create a sense of urgency. In any change that you see for the organization, if we skip this step of generating this sense of urgency, people have a tendency to not take it as seriously as you would like them. All right, so everyone has to feel the need in sort of the same kind of way, or at a minimum level of urgency, so that you've got folks operating from a sense of motivation, right? We want to get it done. So in this case, if we don't act, we lose critical funding. That's going to be a familiar phrase to say if that affects your agency. So what we would want to do in order to generate that sense of urgency, first, clearly we need to know what that case is. But then we want to use our data, some storytelling elements in order to illustrate that point to people. And that message is going to hit differently as you go department to department, person to person, in how they relate to this change that needs to happen. And then creating, once those are in place, creating a space for some healthy discomfort. People should be able to feel that the change is necessary. So however we pitch it, the urgency needs to tell folks that the change needs to happen, and it needs to happen in due course. So we'll see how that plays out. The second step, after we have been able to clearly define things, is to build a guiding coalition. So you really want to start identifying people who are resonating with this idea of change, or the change that you intend to pursue, and get more people around you. The more ways that you have to describe the change in terms that are relevant to the folks in the organization, the better, right? So you definitely need other leaders within the organization to help out with this. That would include staff, could be board members in a lot of instances. And you could even reach outside of the organization itself into other community champions. So think about peers and other partners that may be in a similar situation and you're all kind of working through a change together. The last tip here is very interesting. I fall victim to this all the time, and it says to avoid the usual suspects syndrome. So you don't want to have the same A team coming through every time there's a change to be done, or it loses the intensity when you have people who are naturally motivated to inspire the change to happen, right? It's not just formula. You really need to have people that can embody the leadership of the change movement as part of your coalition. Okay, so what does this coalition do? That's what we want to know. Well, the coalition comes together and helps to form a strategic vision, right? So from my perspective, establishing a vision, articulating a vision, is one of the main drivers of leadership. It is one of the things that establishes your skill set as a leader, is being able to articulate a vision. So in this case, because we're looking at organizational change, it is often beyond just one person's perspective. So that coalition comes together to help craft that clear, emotionally compelling vision. And it's helpful to have all of those emotional perspectives of the vision to form that change so that when leaders in the organization go and talk about what's happening, they are working from a common set of, I don't know, emotional urgency, right, for the change to happen. Okay. Establishing that vision also helps people understand the transition that's going to happen. So letting go of old concepts, grasping on to new ones. The vision lays that out. It lays out what that new is going to look like and why it's so much better than the way things have been done in the past. Okay, so when you have that core group of leaders, you're ready to start enlisting a volunteer army. All right, so what we're looking at here is being able to go out and start pulling people into the cause of the change, because all of those people that are being pulled in kind of are the change. Like, so the activities and the thought process that goes into all of the work that we do, whether it's internally, of the board, of the community, um, we uh, we rely on that leadership to kind of start pulling together the folks who are going to make the change happen, right? So we're looking in this case not at just compliance. We're not trying to say like, okay, well, these are the new rules, and you just have to do it because that's the new rule. While that may be the case, okay, people aren't going to necessarily change and adopt the new rule unless they have a good reason to do that internally, if they believe that it's something that they should do. Else they'll push back against it. Um, we can use a lot of different methods to convey the leadership message that we've got in this change, to enlist more people, to gather people onto our cause. We can do that through town halls. We can do that through micro learning and story sharing. Clearly, social media and other on-site kind of in-person venues are really important for being able to establish this. Last thing here is to remember that enthusiasm is contagious, but also cynicism can be contagious. So if the belief out there is that the change is forced and negative, then that will catch fire. That will become the culture, right? So uh, leaders really have to find what about this new direction is positive and is motivating. And that way, as you talk about it, it's a lot easier to generate that enthusiasm rather than cynicism. Another point on this, while we're talking about communication, is if there's too little or no communication, then folks will invent their own reasons why these changes are going on. And trust me, you do not want that. That is where you get conspiracy theories abound. And the reasons why the change is happening, you lose control of that, right? So what we're trying to do up through step 4 here is to clearly set the message, of what it is that needs to change, why it's got to change, and what internally motivates us to make that change happen, generating excitement. Okay, now that we've got everybody excited and involved and positive, right? The next thing that we need to do is to remove barriers to making the change happen, right? So we want to identify resistance points. Those could be processes. So we may need to look into the way that our business is run, or the way that the work flows through our organization. It could be through policies, and that is driven through law or through other changes that need to happen. You think of fiscal policies, or other policies based on technologies that change, or um, uh, in any case, a number of things can affect why an agency would need to change its policies, or why policies may be a barrier to the change itself. Those policies would need to change. And then sometimes it's people that either have an intense point of view, maybe an opposition party. There are any number of people reasons that could be a point of resistance that you would want to acknowledge and look for ways to solve. After you've identified all of these potential barriers, then you want to give authority to folks to make decisions and take risks to make change happen, right? So this is just kind of the scary part, right? When you need to make a change happen, and depending on how quickly that change needs to happen, is how much risk you're kind of willing to take before acting, right? It's really important to set clear expectations about what you as a leader want to happen, so that you don't get a whole lot of loose cannons and folks going in wrong directions. So the messaging is critical, to make sure that folks can feel confident in the decisions that they're making and the risks that they're taking on behalf of the organization. And then last point here is that we want to reward the initiative, not just the results. We're going to make a lot of attempts at things that may not work. Just remember that those attempts are the things that people are doing, and we want to acknowledge, right? It's the effort that's involved there, to, in this case, reward, but especially to acknowledge, provide praise for things that are moving well, so that you can continue to see changes happening in areas um, of success, and then know where you've got successful techniques for change that uh, if the efforts are there but the results are not, that you want to maintain that level of ambition and motivation for people to continue until the change is complete. Um, Step 6 is to make things bite-sized. You want to generate short-term wins. So establishing some milestones along the way on your plan to change, to make a change happen. Um, this time range is really arbitrary. I'm saying plan for visible, achievable items or wins within 3 to 6 months. So I mean, if you're considering a change that may be like on a strategic plan, where you're making a pivot, or other large scale changes, then yeah, 3 to 6 months is a good window to be able to point back to wins. Sometimes you need to tighten that up even more. So if it's a more rapid change that's happening, you may want to look in a matter of weeks rather than months, to acknowledge the wins, to acknowledge what's going on, what's moving according to plan, so that folks see the momentum, that they see that there is something happening, and it's not just lip service from leadership that's saying, "Hey, we're going to make this change," but they haven't seen anything happen yet. So it's important to, especially if folks aren't seeing what's going on, if they're not witnessing the change happen, to find a way to communicate that works best with your organization. Celebrate loudly, often, and with snacks. Yes, if you've got wins that you really really want to acknowledge, then yes, be loud about it, and that meaning tell your staff internally, but maybe what is appropriate is to announce the wins to the community. Maybe it's a press release. Maybe it's something that's posted on social media. Maybe there's a lot of to do about it. Maybe it's not much more than an email that goes out to everybody. So you'll gauge that accordingly. And of course, when wins build momentum and credibility, so each one begets the last. So you want to um, uh, keep people aware of the progress, I think, is the point here. All right. While you got that going, and remember, these are accelerators, so you may have a lot of things going on at the same time. You want to sustain the acceleration. So once you've got it moving, you have to keep it going. So we've got this sort of milestones in place, and we're celebrating the wins when they happen, but we have to keep it going. This first one is uh, pretty important. We want to avoid victory laps too soon. Don't claim victory if it isn't really there yet, or show off that you've done something too early, if folks haven't really like settled into the change yet. You want to keep looking for new improvement areas. So as you are processing the change, remember that this is a people centric activity. So when we're looking for new improvement areas, that is often communication areas, right? This is how are we explaining things about the process that we're changing to folks so that they're in alignment with that change. And then we want to bring in new champions to keep the fire burning. So as you go, we had initially set up this um, cohort of folks to help lead the change. As we go, we may find that it's necessary to bring in more people as we see, for instance, if we were looking for areas of improvements and we notice that there are new people that are demonstrating leadership capacity for this change, we'll bring them in, right? I mean, it's important to look for the things that are working and accelerate those. And then the eighth of eight steps is to institute the change. So assuming that all of these other pieces are in place, we are instituting the change, right? So there's it's certainly not a situation where we spend several weeks lining all this stuff up, preparing for a change to happen, push a button, the change happens, and then everything's done. Usually it's a slower process. There's some back and forth. There may be opportunities for recrafting the way that you approach things. So when you institute the change, you're going to embed this into well, you'll know that the change has been instituted. Maybe that's a better way of looking at this step. Is that we have successfully embedded the change into the culture, into the systems, right? It exists. The change has happened. Okay. As a result of that, there will be other tasks that we may need to do. Things like updating job descriptions or updating training material or updating an onboarding process, right? So there's a ripple effect that can happen. So we want to be aware of that. It's helpful with that coalition of people. to be aware of the things that will be impacted by the change. And then recognize and reward behaviors that support the change. So if you notice that there are really great ways that folks are adapting to something that's changed, calling out those behaviors is very helpful. So even if I, as one of those peers that are out there, may not be able to perform those same behaviors, I may recognize what good looks like, and I'll do my own kind of version of that to help with the change process. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's the 8 steps in the process. I've got some handouts that help as refreshers on those and some what you can do internally to help process each of those 8 areas. You know, whether you take it as a step by step or you identify that, oh no, we're midstream here. We're going to pick up with some of these other accelerators. That's great. I've got a couple of tools that can help you determine where you are in that process. So if you're just getting started, that's fine. You'll start with step 1 and kind of work through the process. If you find that you've already pretty well established the vision, maybe you've got some folks on board or it's a leadership team is pushing things forward, you may skip into the process a little bit, and that's totally fine. Recognize that every agency handles change in its own way. So guaranteed, you guys are going through some kind of change process at any given time. Hopefully, this helps to put some words around where you are in that flow and give some ideas on accelerating it, you know? So what I've got for you after this call, I have a change readiness worksheet that kind of walks you through some internal assessment as to how prepared your organization may be for uh, stepping into a major change. Um, I also have a vision statement worksheet. So this is something that is specific to this change management process, right? You hear vision statements. A lot of times you look at the vision of the entire organization. It's very important, and it really is critical. But when we're talking about a vision statement for the change management, that is focused on the change itself or the process that we're going to enter into, so that I can articulate as a leader what this change is going to result in. Where are we going here? What does good look like after the change happens? A couple other things to consider if you've got major changes going. One is a staff engagement survey. So that is actually really kind of outside of the scope of a single change. But conducting a staff engagement survey serves a couple of purposes. One is that you're going to identify where there is um, potential dissatisfaction in the kind of work that folks are doing in general. Okay, so in a staff engagement survey, you may find that there are other problems that need to be addressed before you can touch this change, or that you're going to have a couple of things going on at the same time. A lot of times, time is not our friend, right? And we don't have the luxury of attacking one change at a time. We may need to do things all encompassing. So by conducting a staff engagement survey, you get an idea of where people are with um, mm, their engagement with the organization. So you'll find that some are actively engaged, others may just be kind of passively engaged do the work that's required of them, but maybe not much more. Others may be disengaged or actively disengaged and could potentially sabotage the change that you're trying to make. Okay. Um, and they may not even be trying real hard to do that. It could be that cynicism that's contagious. Last thing here is a leadership communication plan. So we talked about, you know, milestones and touch points and some visioning. So as leaders of the change, you'll want to roll out bits of information as you see fit, right? So you're definitely going to want to let people know what changes are coming and maybe some of your process, get people excited about participating in the change process. Uh, so as a leader, writing that down and coordinating your communication, setting up some contingencies if things aren't going exactly the way that you'd like it to. Having that plan in mind is important. All right. I like this as a bit of humor. So if you're looking for a way to passively keep people engaged, it may be appropriate. It may not, but it may be appropriate to set up things like a bingo card. So if you hear like common terms coming through, and just to like you see here, we've always done it this way, this too shall pass, is this in the budget? So some terms that maybe you start to hear around whatever change you're conducting, like in meetings and whatnot. Sometimes this can be fun. Sometimes we do this regardless if there's change involved, and we just want to get some humor out of our day. But um, it is important to note that the heavier the change, the more you want to make it attainable, and keep people in a space of self-motivation. So there has to be some positivity involved, right? To keep people engaged with the change process, or you'll get negative reactions and some pushback, and maybe not just some pushback. Just the change will never happen because of it. All right. So action planning for us, and we're getting close to the end here. Things for us to consider moving forward outside of this for today, right? First thing to consider, what's one change your agency is facing now? Okay. I think that there are lots that we could potentially face. So this may be an exercise in contingency planning. Okay. But certainly we're all facing um, some kinds of changes all the time. So what's one that you're facing right now? Think about, of those 8 steps, which step are you in right now? Like maybe you're kind of advanced in the change game and we just kind of want to get a lay of the land. Where are we right now? Like I said earlier, maybe we're at the beginning of it. Or get this, maybe we tried to do a change and it didn't work. So we need to try again. So maybe that's where we are. Um, Last thing to consider, how can you move one step forward this month? And we're at the beginning of the month, so we could probably take more than one step, right? But what can we do to at least move things forward when it comes to the change? Based on where you are in this model, what can we do to move it forward? Okay, again, I'm going to send you a copy of this presentation with active links, but here's some more stuff around change management, okay? This is just an overview, so hopefully you're getting some ideas on how you can process change, and we'll open up at the end here to sort through some scenarios. But another model that you may consider using, this one is a little bit more common that I've seen, is the ADKAR model, which is another change management model. So we've got a link to that here. There's the National Partnership has a couple of resources on change management that you may find helpful. One is creating a healthy organizational culture, the key to effective change management. The other is navigating change management risk. So from 2 different perspectives there, from the National Partnership. Okay. And some words of encouragement for you. Change is hard. Leadership makes possible. That's us. I'll also add to this that leadership is ubiquitous. So it's not in your title that you find the leader. It's in the actions that you find the leader. So stay bold, stay curious, stay caffeinated. Right? It takes a lot of energy, it takes some alertness. And then obviously, if you've got any need of support, CalCappa is here to support, and we can connect on things that are more intense than this if you need to. But we're out here. For those that are potentially joining us from places outside of California, go to your state association. There, it's big deal why they're there to help. And as the Region 9 lead, CalCappa is often participating in that in some way.